Another video for you with new stories from Ethiopia, Eritrea and Somalia. Breaking news is from Somalia. Newly elected president of Somalia has tested positive for COVID-19. Second news story is from Eritrea champion cyclist Biniam Giramy, who had to quit Giro d'Italia, a cycling race last month because he injured his eye, was back in action today in Eritrea. And Abdul Salam Babikar, UN Special Rapporteur on Eritrea, has appeared at Human Rights Council session 2 days ago. We have a clip for you showing Abdul Salam Babikar speaking about human rights situation in Eritrea. Then Amhara region where protests are underway against Valaga massacre. Today massive demonstrations were held at Gondar University. Amhara diaspora demonstrations also continue. We have a clip for you from Washington DC. Fourthly, two Oromia region-based opposition parties, Oromo Federalist Congress and Oromo Liberation Front, have issued statements about Valaga massacre. They are demanding that investigation into Valaga massacre be conducted by a neutral body. Is there any neutral body in Ethiopia? Lastly was Tigray. Some Tigrayans, it seems, have appeared at a meeting of a subcommittee of Canadian House of Commons. The committee met to discuss human rights situation and humanitarian situation in Tigray. Some Tigrayan witnesses appeared there. After that, committee chair issued a statement. Canada has been accused in recent months, since the start of Tigray conflict, that it has been backing Ethiopian federal government, that it has mining interests, its mining companies are operating in Ethiopia. That is why Canada never proposed sanctions on Ethiopian government. EU withheld aid to Ethiopia. US withheld financial aid to Ethiopia. Canada remained largely silent. Now we are seeing that Tigrayan witnesses have appeared at some subcommittee sessions. Will there be some measures, some actions by Canadian government against human rights abuses committed in Ethiopia? Firstly, viewers, first news story is from Somalia. Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud is the newly elected president of the country, elected last month, and almost a week ago he departed Somalia on a 2-day official visit of the United Arab Emirates. It was a 2-day visit, but he was there for almost a week, and he came back to Somalia a few hours ago. And just a few hours ago, he said in a message that he had been tested positive for COVID-19. No symptoms, he is healthy, but he has confirmed that he is self-isolating because he has been diagnosed with COVID-19. Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud was on a 2-day visit in the UAE, but he remained in UAE for almost a week. And we heard rumors about Hassan Sheikh that he traveled to Israel, but we could not confirm rumors. Then there were unconfirmed reports that after UAE, he'll travel to Kenya, and it would be start of a new era of Kenya-Somalia relations. It seems that he did not visit Kenya, and no confirmation about his visit to Israel as well. rumors were being spread by some opposition activist groups that Somalia was going to recognize Israel. That is why he was there in Israel, but we could not confirm the reports. He is back in Somalia. Meanwhile, he managed to secure some financial assistance from the UAE. United Arab Emirates has announced 20 million US dollars for drought hit areas. Reopening of Sheikh Zayed Hospital was also announced by the UAE government during Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud visit. The hospital suspended its operations in 2018 after Farmajo government developed some disagreements with the UAE. And secondly, UAE has announced to resume flights to Mogadishu. So Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud is back in Somalia, but he's suffering from COVID-19. Second news story is from Eritrea viewers. Firstly, champion cyclist Biniam Giramy is back in action. Last month, he had to quit Giro d'Italia, a cycling championship, and he won a stage of Giro d'Italia. He is the first black African who has won a stage of a national Giro d'Italia cycling championship. But during celebrations on podium, while he was opening champagne bottle, he injured his eye. The cork flew into his eye and he had to quit Giro d'Italia. But today he was back in action in Eritrea, where National Cycling Championship is underway. He won under 23 and elite 2020 individual time trials in Asmara today. Back in action. In coming days, he's going to participate in some other international cycling championship. Watch two clips showing Biniam Giramy competing in Eritrea today. Another news story from Eritrea. Abdul Salam Babikar is UN's special rapporteur on Eritrea about human rights situation in Eritrea. He was never allowed to visit Eritrea, but he submits regular reports to Human Rights Council about human rights situation in Eritrea, and he says that human rights situation in Eritrea is not improving. Just 2 days ago, he appeared before Human Rights Council, and there he said conscription is on the rise. Children, kids as little as young as 14 are being conscripted, and conscription has intensified after Tigray conflict. Thousands have been arrested, detained. And he talked about Eritrean refugees in Tigray too. You know that there were 4 Eritrean refugee camps in Tigray before the start of Tigray conflict. Headsets, Shamelba, Mayani, Adiharish. But during Tigray conflict, the 4 refugee camps came under attacks. All parties to the conflict, they have been accused of having carried out attacks on Eritrean refugees in Tigray. Headsets and Shamelba were almost destroyed, and thousands of Eritrean refugees went missing. Abdul Salam Babikar says that Eritrean forces attacked headsets and Shamelba. Refugees were detained, punished, and conscripted. Take a listen to what he said.
Thousands of conscripts have been forced to participate in the Tigray conflict, with men, women, and children being swept up and sent to fight in the front lines. Previously documented patterns of child recruitment by Eritrean forces have worsened, with witnesses referring to the roundup of children as young as 14. Refugees who had been kidnapped from Hetsas and Shemelba camps in Ethiopia in late 2020 have also been detained, punished, and conscripted.
Next news story is from Amhara region, where protests, demonstrations are underway against Valaga massacre. The massacre committed a few days ago against civilians in Gimbi, West Valaga. Hundreds have been killed. Oromos killed, 2 Muslims, Amhara Muslims, Oromo Muslims have been killed too in this massacre. Different numbers are being shared regarding the casualties. Amharic news sources say that the number is in thousands, but what has been confirmed is that around 300 have been killed in this unprovoked attack by some armed group on western Valaga, Gimbi. Today, a massive demonstration was held at Gondar University. I have a clip for you. Perhaps hundreds, if not thousands, were there. Slogans were chanted, "Stop Amhara Genocide." These slogans were chanted. In support of Fano too. Zameen Kasi was praised by these protesters. We know that more than a month ago, Ethiopian federal government launched a military operation in the Amhara region against those Fano factions which are not under the control of government forces. Since then, Zameen Kasi, Master Shah, other Fano commanders have been on the run, but some Fano commanders like Mare Bodajo are in alliance with Ethiopian federal government. So protests are underway. Tigray says Tigray genocide is being committed. Amhara says stop Amhara genocide. Oromos say that they don't have their due share in Ethiopia. Watch this clip, 2 clips. First clip is from Gondar University showing today's demonstration. Second one is from Washington. We know that I Am Fano rallies are being taken out across the world by Ethiopian diaspora, mostly Amhara diaspora members. We have seen rallies in Germany, in US, in UK, relatively small rallies. One was taken out in Washington DC a few hours ago. First clip is from Gondar, second one is from Washington DC.
እንድትሰሙን የምንፈልገው ከህዝብ ጋር ጥላቻ የለንም፣ ግን ልጆቻችሁን ራፉ ልትሉ ይገባል፣ በቃ ልትሉ ይገባል። ዝምታ እንደ መተባበር ነው። ዝምታ እንደ መተባበር ነው። በአማራ ህዝብ ላይ ዝም ያለ ይፈጸም እንደ ተባበረ ነው የምንቆጥረው።
Now, Oromia viewers, 2 Oromia region-based opposition parties have issued statements about Valaga massacre. The 2 parties are Oromo Federalist Congress opposition party led by Professor Murira Gudina, Jawar Bekle Garba, vice chairman of the party. Second one is Oromo Liberation Front, OLF, led by Daud Ibsa. What are the 2 parties saying? The 2 parties condemn civilian killings in Valaga and they want investigation into Valaga be conducted by a neutral body. The 2 parties are asking Ethiopian government to protect civilians, which is the responsibility of Ethiopian government. Now, is there any neutral body in Ethiopia? Will OFC, OLF agree to investigations conducted by any neutral body in Ethiopia? So what do OFC and OLF mean when the 2 parties say some neutral body should conduct investigations? Are they saying that some international body should investigate? as was proposed by OLA in a statement yesterday. OLA says some international fact-finding commission be established to investigate Valaga massacre. I think these parties and region, first of all, should make demand for establishment of a neutral investigative body which has the trust of all Ethiopians, all Ethiopian groups, political parties, regions. This investigative body should only investigate ethnic violence. It should be completely independent. It should have trust of OLA, federal government, OFC, OLF, TPLF, ONLF, Benishangul fighters. Only then investigations can be conducted and accepted by the players, by the groups, parties in Ethiopia. Otherwise, whatever is investigated will be rejected by one or the other party. Lastly, viewers, some Tigrayans have appeared in front of Canadian House of Commons subcommittee which met to discuss human rights situation in Tigray. Tigray activists, Tigray supporters have been accusing Canada of supporting Ethiopian federal government in the campaign against Tigray. Canadian mining companies have been operating in Tigray and other parts of Ethiopia. Gold mining, Canadian companies are involved in gold mining in Ethiopia. And we saw a protest a few days ago against International Mining Convention in Canada. And Tigrayans protested in front of the building where this mining convention was being held in Canada. And the message was that mining companies were involved in mining in Ethiopia, and that is why Canadian government was backing Ethiopian government. It did not condemn human rights abuses in Tigray. Now, a Canadian House of Commons subcommittee met to discuss human rights situation, humanitarian situation in Tigray. Some Tigrayan witnesses appeared there as well. And after that, we saw a statement of Anita Vandenbeld, who is a member of this subcommittee. And she said that systematic sexual violence was committed in Tigray after hearing the witnesses. Secondly, she says that grave human rights abuses have been committed. And 3 million people are displaced in Tigray. 90% are food insecure, means 90% will have to be provided with food aid. Tigrayan diaspora community in Canada has been protesting, urging Canadian government to adopt punitive measures against Ethiopian federal government like imposition of sanctions, withholding of financial aid, but no such measures have been announced by Canadian government. Yes, we did see phone calls between Justin Trudeau, Canadian PM, and PM Abiy of Ethiopia. Will there be any change in Canada's policy after this House of Commons subcommittee hearing? Watch this clip showing Austin Vandenbelt, House of Commons subcommittee member briefing after the meeting. Thank you for watching.
And I think I'm speaking for the whole committee, that we are so profoundly grateful that you are here providing a voice to a conflict that, to be honest, is not being heard and not being noticed enough. And I particularly thank you, Ms. Mbai, the things that you described, the sexual violence, the brutal sexual violence that you're describing is unthinkable. And I am very grateful that you have brought your voice here today. We know, we've heard the numbers. I mean, the very scale of the crisis that we're talking about. 3 million people displaced. You mentioned 90% of people are right now in food need. And the targeted killings of civilians, the